She had an extra key for my car. I didn't know it.
Please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back.
You're looking for a resolution to this, it sounds like.
I would like a resolution.
Well, we know she was just going to go run errands and do some things, and it's just gone, just like that.
And please bring our babies home, and that's that.
Today, once again, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We get so many requests from panelists, it's unbelievable. We get thousands of them. And what we want to do is try to catch up on our list of things we've promised we would do. So we're going to take a look at 4 or 5 different situations where the person or people are talking about their missing wife, their missing child, their missing husband, whatever it is. And we're going to break them down and tell you what we see. If you see something different or something you've learned already that we've missed, let us know in the comments. We read them. All right. You ready? Here we go. I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. I also created the #1 online body language course, bodylanguagetactics.com, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language. I help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
I am Chase Hughes. I've written 5 books on behavior and body language. I train intelligence agencies and the general public in extreme persuasion, influence, and behavioral profiling. Greg.
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior and put together this #1 bodylanguagetactics.com course with Scott. And I spend most of my time on Wall Street and corporate America.
All right, today we're going to do something a little bit different once again. We're not going to do one case or situation. We're going to do several. We get a lot of requests, and to keep up with the list and try to make our list smaller, we're going to try to knock out 3 or 4 of them during this one. So we're going to try to keep them short, but we got a lot of little videos. So anybody want to add anything? We good?
No.
I think the only thing I would add is these are in varying states of case. Some of these are open cases. Some of these are closed cases. There will be some guys who we know the outcome and some who we don't know yet. That's it.
Right. Okay, cool. Let's get started.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad.
Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm not going to jump on everything here, but there are a handful that jump off the page. This is a prepared statement, #1. If I prepared a statement, it would be at least coherent, and it would deliver a message to a person, not to every person. I wouldn't say I, they, you, we. I mean, this is all over the board. There's not a clear message. And if you're preparing a statement, you would think you would say, Susanna, wherever you are, whatever I can do for you, I'm here. Or you might say, whoever took her, if you really believe somebody took her, I need to get her back, whatever it cost. You wouldn't be addressing her and then saying whoever took her. It seems a lot to me like he is trying to tell a story. And that's the whole thing about there's a plot line that I'm trying to get out here. Nobody else may know the plot line, just whatever's in his head. There's also a fading facts thing. Scott, I'm going to use your term. He kind of drops off at the end. And he's got this there's a big lot going on here. But usually when we think of grief muscle, we don't think of all these muscles in the forehead engaged and concern. That looks like I'm concerned and I'm asking for approval. That doesn't look like that arc that we all associate with the grief muscle from Duchenne. So messages there, not necessarily coherent. From a prepared message, I expect a lot more. And I'll leave the other glaring things around facial muscularity and that to you guys. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so first of all, for me, I couldn't agree more that it's incoherent what's happening here. It is a prepared statement. My guess is the FBI have said, okay, look, we're going to, film something. We'll put it up. But I can't see why they would have asked him to kind of script it in this way, where the subject of it or who he's talking to keeps changing and kind of non sequiturs. So it feels to me like he hasn't quite worked out who his audience is for this. And that concerns me. if it were me there, I'd be going, well, I want to talk to Suzanne and I'm going to focus on her, or I want to talk to the people that I believe have taken her and I want to talk to them. This is all over the place. Now, his breathing is all over the place as well. We get this, oh, Suzanne at the start. Seems melodramatic to me, a little too much. And that expiration, that big out breath at the end, again, seems melodramatic, trying to convince me of the grief and the pain. And then, yeah, absolutely seems to run out of breath at the end there, which creates that fading fact as well. So either that's a fading fact or his breathing isn't quite in sync. Either way, it's worrying, because you'd think, if this is my chance to get the message across, I'm going to take a big breath and I'm going to hammer this one out, and I know what I want to say to people. So it's confusing here. I don't see why it should be and why it has to be. So a bit of a red flag on this one around those things. Chase, what do you got for me?
Yep, I absolutely agree with you guys. I think we were all originally going to do this for a TV show several months ago.
Yes.
Which wound up not happening. And I think he's confused about who to address, and he's not sure, should it be a hostage story? Should it be a runaway story? And there's eye blocking. We see this little eye flutter when he's saying, I want you back. And there's no sadness. There's no sadness here at all. And there's a head shaking during his affirmative speech. When he's speaking in the affirmative, it's a data point. So don't think that that's something that's going to tell you some secret that somebody's lying. So with this, I'm going to give you 4 steps. If you got a Post-it note handy and a crayon, I'm going to give you 4 steps, the Chase Hughes 4-step method for breaking down the videos that are going to come up. Number 1, where is the concern directed? Is it story, plot, innocence, that person's innocence, or the missing person's return or safety? Where is it focused? Number 2, are there moments of stress or fear associated with their guilt or associated with the missing person? Number 3, is the information provided specific and directed towards finding and recovering the missing person? And finally, number 4, is the sadness more visible or less visible than the stress? So use that as a window as we're going through these next few videos. Scott, what do you got?
Cool. All right. I don't know why this guy's now, I don't know if this guy's has this been closed yet? Greg, do we know?
This is open. This is open. Yep.
Okay. Well then,
Suzanne
don't take
Morphew
what I'm
is still
saying
open.
as a fact. Don't take what I'm saying as a fact. I'm just saying what I think here. This is hilarious. I can't believe he's not in the pokey yet. Like I was telling you guys earlier, he says, anyone, you, well, we, your, they, I, and you. This is all within 26 seconds. He uses just about every pronoun that there is in this whole thing. Don't see any grief. He's talking really quiet, really too quiet. I don't know where he is. It sounds like he's out in the middle of the forest or something, or up in the mountains or something. And he's not, who's he talking to? Like you were saying, Greg, who the hell's he talking to? Suzanne, if there's anyone out there, it goes from talking to her to talking to some I don't know what's going on. It's confusing. I don't know who he's talking to. I don't know why somebody said, hey man, what are you talking about? You sound crazy. And he says, he should have said, listen, when you talk to the person who's got your person, like that movie, I'll find you. I'm going to find you. We got all kinds of people looking for that. That's the road you go down. Or I would think you would go down in this situation. I've seen it done before and executed beautifully. But in this case, no. He doesn't say, we're going to find you. I'll come get you. We'll find you. No, he's so detached from this. I think these are all classic cues of detachment from this person. He knows what's happened. And I'll bet you $100 that when they're out searching for her, he's with them. He's in the search party looking too. And I bet he's not very interested as he goes through. But that's what I bet. His personality seems like those people that try to be all up in it and everything. That he seems like that type. So that's where I'm going with it. What are you going to say, Greg? You got something?
Yeah, funny you say that. If you go out and look, there's actually a video that one of the searchers took on his cell phone, and you judge from there.
Oh, well, shoot. I should have known that. Before I mouthed off, I could have found that and put that on there too.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there, that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. And I want you back so bad.
All right, we good?
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, let's move.
Wes says his mother recently passed away, and he and Sandra got in a fight over his mother's will. Sandra threatened to leave.
She comes down with her coat on and says, the last thing she said is, "You'll hear from my lawyer." Out of the corner of my eye, I see her car keys. So I grab them. And there was no scuffle. I convinced her to go upstairs to bed. It's no secret we didn't get along too well, but you live together and you run a family. And it's terrible for my kids.
Wes says when he woke up the next morning, Sandra was gone, and so was his car, a 2005 Dodge Stratus. Neither have been found.
She had an extra key for my car. I didn't know it.
I'm going to go first on this one. All right. I think this is classic embedded confession. Almost everything he says is an embedded confession. The last thing she said when she came downstairs, and then he describes what she did after that, after they went to bed. Number two. Number one, who keeps their coat upstairs? And they're in Wisconsin. Nobody comes downstairs with their coat on. You come downstairs, you get your coat, and you leave. You do whatever. He says there was no scuffle. That lets us know there was a scuffle. There was a problem there. Why would he even bring that up? Why would he even say that? Then he says, I noticed, I looked down and saw her keys in her hand. I saw that out of the corner of my eye. You kidding me? Then he realizes what he's done. And then he says at the end there, I didn't know she had an extra set of keys in my car. Really, really fast. These are all classic embedded confessions, right? All that make up an embedded confession. This should be studied, I think, because it's so classic. Maybe he hasn't been caught yet, I don't know. But here's what I think happened. I think he killed that woman. I think she came downstairs and was yelling at him about it. They were yelling because they didn't get along, from what everybody says. He puts her in the car, drives it out, puts it in the water, somehow gets back to the house, but he's got the keys with him. So they're going to wonder why he's got the keys. Maybe they haven't found them yet. Apparently, maybe they haven't, but they're going to. And they're going to say, "How did you get back? Why do you have those keys?" Because he needed them to get back in the house. And he's used to having them. He just put them back in his pocket when he threw the car. And I bet you it's in a lake somewhere. I'm just going off on what I think is going to happen. I'm really not. It sounds crazy. Yeah, but the part where he says she had an extra key. Yeah, man, that's the best part for me. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so just that hot spot of the whole story around the keys that starts. Yeah, and actually before that the last thing she said, that's a bit final, isn't it? That's a bit final. Anyway, but yeah, this whole kind of story of the keys comes up. So just add to a little bit of nonverbal to that is he averts gaze on she had an extra set of car keys, and then his head comes up and he locks gaze, I think, to check out, you buying that one? Because you really need to buy that story because there's a bit of a problem with the keys. So yeah, he really puts his foot in it on the keys, I would say. That's all I got on that one. You did a great job on that. Chase, anything extra on this one?
Don't say that. Shh. Next time he does it, don't say anything. Let's let him go.
I'll give it to you again. Chase, anything extra on this one?
Yeah, I'll just add in one. I'm sorry, Scott. I know you got to chop
No, it's totally cool. I'm not going to. I'm leaving that one in.
So I'll just add in one thing here. You guys got a lot of what I had here. But listen to when the pronouns go from self-reference to remove to someone else. And in psychology and persuasion, this is called a shift of a referential index. And we're saying, comes down, she says, I see, I grab, I convinced. And then he says, you live together, you run a family, it's terrible. So now it's no longer him involved with that person. So it's, I think that's pretty telling. Greg?
Yeah. So let's go right exactly down the same path you all took, but I'm going to change just a small touch. He changes tense when he says the last thing she ever said. He's saying she comes downstairs, she says, he changes tense. That's a permanent shift when you go to that. Like you said, Mark, it's locked down. Also, if I convinced her to go back upstairs, don't you think there's probably a conversation going on that convinced, unless you had her by the hair or something, dragging her up the steps? Now, that's one way of persuading. He also does what I typically call trading guilt. That whole thing about everybody knows we didn't get along, he's casting that out front just so you don't go down that path and say, everybody knows you didn't get along. Well, yeah, everybody knew we didn't get along. He does something that we talk about in the True Crime Workshop called transfer. And you'll see, I'll bet you when you get this guy in the interrogation room, you start hammering him, he's going to become emotionally unavailable. That crying is emotional unavailability, and he gets away from you. That's a good way to break eye contact, and we'll see it again. Good way to break eye contact, good way to get away. He uses guilty words. Scott, you hit it dead on. Who says scuffle? Hey, we had a scuffle yesterday. That's not a typical word that people use. But when you think about crimes, a lot of people say, was there a scuffle at the scene? So you get that immediately. The other one he does, I call that rational actor speak. When he's saying, I had an extra set of keys that I didn't know about, or she had a set of keys I didn't know about. That's rational actor speak to me. Is trying to figure out why that thing that's going to come up. What he's doing, we have a thing we call the liar's loop, and that's a trigger. That's fabrication. That's fabrication, deconflict, pitch, and defend. What's happened is he has gotten this whole thing together and he's ready to pitch it. And he's throwing out, and anything he's thought of, he's going to give you that data so he doesn't have to do it again later. Hey, she must have had a second set of keys. The last thing she said. All those things are his story. If this guy's not guilty, he sure is doing a lot of things that cause me to want to dig into him a lot more. Could he be innocent? Sure. He could feel guilty because of. But these things like the last thing she said, and then he talks about after. These things like she must have had a second set of keys. All of that points to something wrong in the story. By the way, if you don't know this, they've seized his antique car that a dog alerted on, and they've taken his computers and cell phones. So
Exhibit A. He somehow that car is involved in it then. Before he got rid of that car. That's how he got back or something. I don't know how I got two cars out there. I'm just like,
who knows? Who knows? But
yeah, but you know what? I got another $100 that says within 90 minutes you could break this guy, box him in easily, because we're not dealing with a damn intellectual King Kong here. This guy, I think it'd be easy. I think the problem is the more you put your story together before your first contact, the more you are married to that story. We all know, every one of us here have talked to a guy who's got the perfect story. And this is the Columbo approach. We go in and say, well, okay, but one last thing. And then everything starts to come apart. Those keys, that second set of keys, are 20 years old. They came with the car, that kind of thing. You just got to come and find a reason why. And the story then starts to unravel. And it's usually a small detail. It's not a big deal that takes it apart, because he's thought of all the big stuff. It's the little stuff that gets him. Reverse timelines, those kinds of things. Right? Yeah.
Wes says his mother recently passed away, and he and Sandra got in a fight over his mother's will. Sandra threatened to leave.
She comes down with her coat on and says, the last thing she said is, you'll hear from my lawyer. Out of the corner of my eye, I see her car keys. So I grab them. And there was no scuffle. I convinced her to go upstairs to bed. It's no secret we didn't get along too well, but you live together and you run a family. And it's terrible for my kids.
Wes says when he woke up the next morning, Sandra was gone, and so was his car, a 2005 Dodge Stratus. Neither have been found.
She had an extra key for my car. I didn't know it.
All right, we good?
Good one.
Here we go.
She had an extra key for my car. I didn't know it.
The car was last spotted around 3 a.m. March 27th by a Muskego police officer. Sandra's cell phone, social media, and bank accounts have been inactive since she was last seen. Her 4 children and their families offering a $10,000 reward for any information.
No, that's what I don't understand. A grandma wouldn't leave her grandkids.
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question. And at first I thought she was teaching me a bad lesson.
What are you telling your kids right now?
Well, they're nice to me, but at the same time, it comes out once in a while, you killed Mom. And It's not the case, but I am the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it is. All right, Chase, what do you got?
So let's first make the offer. I can teach these reporters how to take a screenshot of a photo instead of an entire web page that has a photo on it. Because it looks like somebody just Googled the car and then screenshotted the entire cell phone screen. And then they showed the whole cell phone screen on the news. That could have been cropped as well. It's just sloppy.
We're having to do more with less, Chase.
Nothing deceptive about that. So I think when he's saying the words killed and mom, we're seeing a little bit of body rigidity here, not definitive deception. And his head shake and his emotion when he's making denials is actually perfectly timed. So it's maybe a point in his favor. There is some stuff there where he's at first unwilling to disparage the victim, which I think is an honesty indicator. But then he says, well, that's the question about her. You know, maybe she did do those things, and maybe she was trying to teach me a bad lesson. Not sure what that means, but the reporter, for some reason, interrupts him in the middle of his answer to her question while he was going on and providing a detailed answer. She stops him and asks a completely different question. I would have loved to see the rest of his answer because I think that would have been a little more revealing. Greg, what do you got?
So when I look at, that's the question, there's a lilt to it, which I would not expect. I would think that when you're talking about an emotional thing, it's down, not lilting. Yeah, that's a question. And then he kind of breaks eye contact. When he starts here, when he is talking about her doing whatever the bad lesson was, and you see his eyes, he's drawing her with his eyes. That is usually, for me, he's concerned about what she is thinking. Pay attention to that pulling taffy or whatever you want to call it. When I draw you with my eyes, it's a sideways confirmation glance. And if you believe it, then I'll keep my story up. If you don't, I stop. Guys, none of this means that the person is guilty. This all means that if we were sitting across from them, they would get a lot more heat. We would go after them a lot more aggressively. She asked a good question, but you're right. She steps on him and then doesn't allow him to continue. He's still doing the transfer. He breaks off and goes into the emotional piece, and he's doing more of that lilt throughout the entire thing. I don't feel sorry for him here. And Chase, you were saying it earlier. Is the story about finding the person? Is the story about something else? I don't feel any of that for him. You don't feel sorrow for him. You don't feel like something's going on. In fact, it almost feels like he's saying, well, she's off doing something. She's just off doing something. Maybe it's their relationship. Maybe we'll find out that maybe she did do that. But there's a lot of red flag in his behavior, that drawing with his eyes and then breaking eye contact in that transfer so you can't talk to him. And it's a way to escape questions. I think when you think of Liar's Loop and the guy's put together a question and he's put together all this information, now he's pitching it. He's fishing to see if you believe him with a lilt in his voice and his eyes to the side. The minute you do, he moves to the next element of the story. That's a bad indicator for a person who's being truthful typically. Scott, did you start this?
No,
no.
I'll go.
Scott, what do you get?
All right. When she asked him that, when she says, "What are you telling your children?" He doesn't tell her. He doesn't say it. He says what they say to him. That every now and then they say, "You killed mom." He can't even get that out because I think he knows he did it. As he's trying to get that out, his brain goes, "Dude, don't say that. Don't say that." So that's why I think he's got a problem saying that. And then as the rest of the time, he's backing up. I mean, he almost backs out of the scene there, out of the picture there. And I agree with you, Chase. I think we're looking at, I hate to say this in case they hear it, but it's not the greatest editing in the whole world, because the edit between what we're seeing there, the reason that they didn't get the rest of that question, he may have answered it, but the edit is there when that picture is up, and you can hear him almost saying something else, and they stop it and then go on. I think that's what's happened there. Because to me, that's fairly lame. That's not a very good way to question somebody, even for a reporter. You know, she's been doing that a long time. She must have been doing that a long time. When he says when he's talking about that isn't the case, you don't say that. You say, "No, I didn't kill her. It wasn't me. I didn't do it." And I think you'd have a lot more to say than just "I'm low hanging fruit" at the end as an excuse. This is just, I don't know why this guy's out walking around. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so the one thing that hits me immediately is the redirect that he does. The journalist says, I don't understand. A grandmother does not leave her grandkids. And he says, that's the question. Well, no, that isn't a question. She just made a statement. That was all. It's not a question at all. That's a statement. And what you've done is redirected away from that statement by going, hey, that's a question that I can't answer. Nobody was asking you to answer a question. Somebody just made a statement, and what they were looking for was your reaction to that statement. And your reaction to that statement is to deflect away and to go, yeah, I mean, you know, we're all asking that question, and nobody is asking that question. She's making a clear statement of that is not a usual thing for somebody to do. Talk about why this is unusual, you know, make sense of that. He's not able to make sense of that. He diverts away, and at the same time, he takes his hanky or a cloth or whatever that is, and he brings it up to his face, and he does a block at that point. He puts up a barrier of some sort around them. Those two elements for me are enough for me that I'm kind of go, okay, we got something going on here before we even get into, you know, the stuff that Scott was talking about there, which just, you know, nails it. So that's what I got on that one. It's a good one.
Yeah. And I think when he puts that thing up to his face as the barrier, that's stop this and let's move to the next one. That's sort of putting it into it. You're, in other words, you're blocking it off and then moving to the next thing. So that's
watch his eyes when he's doing that. Watch his eyes. He's making contact when he's blocking. He's looking, peeking around the corner.
She had an extra key for my car. I didn't know it.
The car was last spotted around 3 a.m. March 27th by a Muskego police officer. Sandra's cell phone, social media, and bank accounts have been inactive since she was last seen. Her 4 children and their families offering a $10,000 reward for any information.
No, that's what I don't understand. A grandma wouldn't leave her grandkids.
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question. And at first I thought she was teaching me a bad lesson.
What are you telling your kids right now?
Well, they're nice to me, but at the same time, it comes out once in a while. You killed Mom. And it's not the case. But I am the low-hanging fruit.
all right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm her fiance. And if anybody do know anything, could you please, you know, contact this office and let them know. Like I said, no matter how small or big, because it's just unusual. She would never not go without talking to those kids, you know. Even me, you know, she would not go without talking to me, you know.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
I don't have much. People are onions. I'm going to start by saying that. You know, when we think of people, we think about the outside coating of somebody, and you're trying to put a picture to them. But people are onions, and whatever they've been exposed to over time just continually nests and nests and nests. So let's first of all say we don't know what experience people have, why they, you know, whether they're uncomfortable because of what's going on in the actual briefing, whether they've ever stood in front of a camera, whether it's law enforcement. Who knows? Who knows what makes people uncomfortable? But this guy's certainly uncomfortable. So when we talk about liar's loop and we say there's a trigger, the trigger in this case is his girlfriend is missing, then you get to fabricate. Well, it depends on how, number one, how bright you are and how together you are as to what you fabricate. And that goes both ways. If you're really smart, you probably don't overfabricate. If you're not really smart, you probably don't overfabricate. So somewhere in the middle is probably the sweet spot for finding people who overfabricate. Now, he's clearly not overfabricated. He's not thought out even the simplest of questions as they start up. And so you see his shoulders rising and his respiration increase and his blink rate increase when he's asked the simplest of questions. He has an unfortunate adapter. If I were going to be in trouble for my girlfriend missing or anybody wondering if my girlfriend were missing, that's the finger I would probably not adapt with. And we can't see the rest of his hands, but we do see his left index finger gripping when he is doing something. And Chase, I know you're going to talk about digital flexion, but when I think about digital flexion, usually it's all fingers, not the one. So it's kind of an unfortunate way to look. He's kind of got a fry to his voice, and he's also insulating. He's throwing out information that really doesn't have any real value. And we talk about insulator, we talk about stancer, trancer, insulator. Insulator's throwing out data for you to pick up on and then try to run with it. He's trying to put out a little information about, here's what happened. Usually she would not go without talking to, oh yeah, and not without talking to me. So all of that is him giving something for you to pick up on. He also does something Trump was really bad about. Once he makes a point, sniffing. That could be related to his increased respiration, but likely it's related to his changed thoughts. Once he's finished with the first thought, he goes to the next. And there's a minor lip compression in here. All of that together doesn't mean he's lying. Could mean he's uncomfortable because he's in front of all these people. Could mean he's uncomfortable because of where he is. But it certainly gives me a whole lot of focus on him to say there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I want to know why. Chase, what do you got?
This sounds to me, I absolutely agree, Greg, but this sounds to me like a person reluctantly reading off of a cue card. Like they don't want to be there. They're trying to lose the movie deal. They don't want to get hired for the role, and they have to read off this cue card. It feels really rehearsed. There's a lack of emotion. There's no emotion at all. No sadness. And obviously we see there's no hope to get anyone back. There's no hope that anyone's safe. The story is about his innocence. So we're seeing some of those four things we talked about right away starting to stack up here. And lastly, if she wouldn't leave ever without talking to you or the kids, why wait till 1 a.m. to freak out? So that should have been a very unusual moment from the get-go. So it's just what Greg said in the last video. Those small details are stuff that we would pick up on and say, wait, if she wouldn't leave without talking to you, then why wasn't it a big deal when she left? Mark.
Yeah, so I agree with you there, Greg. First off, I start thinking to myself, very quiet, very kind of, pinned down, minimizing. And if it were me in that situation, and as everybody points out, I'm a little bigger than most people anyway, but I would be trying to get my message across. There would be a lot of gestures from me. This is my chance to go, look out for her. Here's what she looks like. I don't know where she is. Let's find her. I would be more emphatic. He's very quiet. He's very subdued. He's very hemmed in there. And so instantly I have to think that's a bit odd. But at the same time, just as you say there, Greg, I've got to go, well, I don't know whether he's ever been on camera before. He's probably never been in this situation before. So we don't know how he's going to react. And we got nothing to baseline him against. So I kind of go, okay, well, let's just discount that. And then there's some stuff in his favor, which this double shoulder shrug on it was unusual. It does have an air of like, I just don't know. I don't know what's going. This is odd. It's unusual. I don't know what's going on here. So we could read that as quite congruent. So at the moment, I got nothing to go on. Other than there's a really nice electro voice mic down there that's really picking up some finer points of what's happening in his mouth. And I'm hearing a lot of vocal clicks in there, which come from the mouth kind of sticking together, it drying out there. And you really pick up those moments where, the mouth doesn't quite know what it should be doing or whether it said the right thing before or after. There's a lot of that going on. It's picking up really well on the mic. And so I want to dig into that because I'm thinking, yeah, there's something else. Now, again, yes, it could be nervousness about the situation. You don't tend to get that many. You tend to get one before somebody starts speaking and then they're into it and then the whole event takes over. But here it's all the way through. So a little red flag for me there. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with all you guys. There's no emotion in this. And the telling part for me was when they first asked him the question, and that's when I stopped it and started the video of him, is when he braces himself to get ready. So Chase, yeah, that does ring back to your thing, him being prepared. So I believe he was ready for that. And Greg, going back to your point about the trigger finger, let's talk about, and I'm going down a road Mark usually goes down. Let's talk about what he's wearing. He's wearing the classic uniform you see when you go to the shooting range. He's wearing the hat. It's got it's the same style hat, not just a baseball cap, but it's that same style hat when you go to the range. He's wearing that dark shirt with a shirt under it. It's zipped up. That's what you wear when you carry. Doesn't mean he's carrying, but I'm saying this guy, I think he's familiar with weapons. So that goes back to your thing, Greg, about maybe when they find out what happened, maybe he shot this woman. I don't know, but he sure looks like that type to me from just what he's wearing. Because I would get ahead every time somebody comes in wearing something like that. I always go heads up, whether they're a good person or a bad person. You don't know, but I keep an eye on him. It makes me do that. He's a little bit too quiet. I agree with all you guys. He's really quiet, and he's trying to control what's going on, and he's trying to be really still. But the more he tries to be still, the odder, I guess you'd say, he tends to look. He looks weirder and weirder as it goes along because he just tries to, and he doesn't blink a whole lot. His blink rate's really low, and he's just looking straight ahead. Probably, I think you're right, Mark. I think he's probably nervous, but I do think this is what he's planned out in his deconfliction section of the Liar's Loop. He said, "Here's all the things I got to point out, so I can cover everything." And he does as he goes along. We're going to see a couple other videos, so he covers pretty much everything. So that's what I got.
Yeah, Scott, I think you're pointing out the concealed carry. Takes one to know one is the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm her fiance. And if anybody do know anything, could you please, contact this office and let them know. Like I said, no matter how small or big, because it's just unusual. She would never not go without talking to those kids. Even me, she would not go without talking to me, All
right.
Then when did you suspect something was wrong? How long did that take?
When it got late at night, 10, 11, and I figured, because he should have been home by then. And I was calling, but the phone kept going to voicemail. So I figured wherever she at, I don't know, maybe the phone dead. And then after I sit around for a while and doze off to sleep, when it get about 1 in the morning, I know something definitely wrong because she's not going to be out after 1 o'clock.
All right. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so the story as I can pick it up here is that she goes out to the shops or some errands, and then she's not back. There's concern because she's not back by 10 or kind of 11 o'clock. Well, what does she do? Does she keep tigers or something? I mean, is she out going for milk product or something? It's like, I don't. The only reason you're out that late on an errand is milk for your tigers, as far as I can understand. So that's odd anyway. But then the whole story of he dozed off until 1 o'clock and only comes concerned at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, I just want to go into that in terms of just a lifestyle and logic. That's all. I don't get the lifestyle. I don't get the logic. So I would be in on that. There's some red flags on that. Look, all of you out there will be able to go, yeah, I think there's a really good reason why. And I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's a really good reason why. But I want to know that reason. I want to feel comfortable with that reason. And I want somebody to tell me that reason in a way that I go, that makes sense. You are honest about that. There's a clear story and your body language was congruent with that. Good. Let's move on. At the moment, I can't move on from just the premise of what's being talked about there. But, maybe tigers are involved and so all bets are off. Chase, what do you got?
Totally agreed. I think he also makes a huge mistake of making an innocence announcement instead of a request for help. Here's the Facebook group I've started. Go to the news channel's website. Just do anything. Save her picture to your cell phone. Just do me that favor. You might see her later. You might have to compare it to something. Some kind of request for help would be good here. There's no emotion. There is zero concern. There's no request for help. Everything is vague and ambiguous. And when he's saying he's very uncertain, wherever she's at, I don't know. And right when he says those words, you'll see a single shoulder shrug with an outward elbow joust, which means some disagreement and potentially some anger there. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Yeah, I agree. No emotion whatsoever. There's nothing there. He's still trying to control the way he's moving, those types of things. But boy, he sure leaves a lot of time open in there. He sure leaves a lot of, this happened we don't know anything about the timeline, really. All we know is 10 or 11 came up, and then at 1 o'clock he woke up. There's a lot of time in there. And those little kids probably go to sleep early. So he had a lot of time to get done. If he was going to do something, had a lot of time in there to get it done. And what are they going to do? Be witnesses? No. So I think probably those are very telling. And however this ends up, I think that's going to come into play, because he's completely creating time in there where there's, not a whole lot happened between, 9 and 11. And then 11 to 1, I went to sleep. And then I woke up at 1. No, it's just too. This is one of those things you look at and go, let's move along. We need to talk to this guy. So it's another one I can't believe is out walking around. Greg, what do you got?
So interrogation is the art of getting the most information in the shortest period of time. That's the definition of interrogation. One of the ways to frustrate an interrogator is to hide time, because if you hide time, you make them work harder to get the information. It's a way of getting away from lots of things. Well, there's certainly some time hiding here. 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Okay, all that. When did you first notice? Funny when he says that. This is one of those fortunate times to have very small eyes like I do. You wouldn't notice my eyes bulging open. His lids open immediately. Like, didn't think of that question. He starts to illustrate with his finger again. He gives too much detail then. It was this and this and this. He swallows heavy. There's some breathing change. You see his respiration increase, his blink rate go up, and then he makes too much eye contact as he's answering the question. We call that romancer in our course. And what we're looking for when we say romancer is I'm paying really close attention to you because I want to make sure you believe what I'm saying. And any nuance, any subtlety and change, I'll pick up on. That's the romancer piece. By the way, you don't need to be trained to know how to tell when something changes. Mark, I think you did a great job a couple of sessions ago to say change is really what we all are looking for. And we all can recognize change. It's how wives catch husbands, husbands catch wives, how mothers know their kids are lying, because things change. And that's what we look for. Too much eye contact. Then he drops downright, and downright is the place we keep emotion. It's where we have emotional information. Then he thinks through what he's going to say, drops back to his left, comes back up, and after he delivers his message, he goes, again, there's a sniff. That's record keeping. In a lot of people, that's how they keep records, that they're done with that topic and they're moving to the next. It would make me dig in. Doesn't mean he killed her. Doesn't mean anything. By the way, Mark, I think she goes to school at night. She's this young woman is in a, I think it's one of the criminal justice or something at Georgia Military College. I just looked her up this afternoon. But yeah, this is enough to cause me to have red flags and to dig into him. That's it. That's all I got.
Cool.
Then when did you suspect something was wrong? How long did that take?
When it got late at night, 10, 11, and I figured, because he should have been home by then. And I was calling, but the phone kept on the voicemail. So I figured wherever she at, I don't know, maybe the phone dead. And then after I sit around for a while and dozed off to sleep, when it get about 1 in the morning, I know something definitely wrong, because she's not going to be out after no 1 o'clock.
All right.
Good one.
I started out the day, frankly, thinking it was just another of 24 times that they've done this. And throughout the day, people seem to think this was different. I mean, it's a different kind of behavior than their usual. And if the police department is changing things that dramatically, people thought that it was pretty serious, something to take seriously. And so I realized that maybe I've got some really good reason to hope.
All right. I'm not good at not using foul language when talking about somebody like this, so I'm going to bow out of this one. This what he did was too graphic, and so I'm not going to be able to do this with a straight head. So, Greg, you want to go first?
All you need to do is watch the entire video and don't think about anything else. And then when he says there's cause for hope, look at the shift. Here we go again, change in body language. And look at the contemptuous face. Look at that half-sided face. Look at the change in what he has been doing before that. Now we'll go back and look at what led up to that. Well, there is no hope. He knows there's no hope, and that's the reason for the face change. But he is the romancer. Remember I said the romancer is the person who's staring you in the eyes. They only have eyes for you because they're looking to see what you're picking up on. This is late in his case, I believe. This went on for a long time, and he was in front of the media a lot. This is, I'll forget his name now. I got to go look it up. Josh is his first name. Anyway, his wife disappeared, and then later they found her. He was a guy who went out on some camping trip, that kind of thing, and took his kids on Christmas Day. His breathing rate is up. He's doing some little rocking to release nervous energy. And then I'm just going to leave it at that and say, watch the change when they get to good reason for hope. That's enough reason for me right there to take this guy apart in an interrogation room. And I would venture to say all of us. Mark, what do you get?
Yeah. So, not only because of what we do each week, but because of other work that I do, I watch a lot of videos of people talking about stuff. And, it's got to the stage where most of the time I can look at something and go, oh yeah, I see what's going on here. Most of the time it's pretty easy. But then this video comes along and I watched it three or four times. And there's something inside me going, what on earth is going on here? Why don't I understand this? It's just a guy talking and I don't understand something here. There's something up that I don't get about this. I don't get what's going on here, which is odd for me because I should get most stuff, relatively quickly and easily. So then I kind of start digging into it and I go, okay, I can't work out the context of what's happening here and I can't work out the subject of the story because every time he starts to talk about something that might be contextual, it just stops. And every time he starts to talk about something that might be subject, it just disappears. So at the end of this, I don't really know what's being talked about until we get to this moment of hope. So it lands there on the hope. So I go, well, is it therefore the net of this really hopeful? Or is it the opposite of that? Is it, the opposite of hope? All is lost, essentially. Then we see this either tension release happening in the face, or I think he's saying something and we don't get to hear it. There's some unvoiced thoughts in there. So the net of this is I go, I'm not being led to understand what's going on in your mind here. You're not telling me stuff. There's this thing about hope that you land on, and I don't know whether the hope is true or false. I want to dig into that. And there's also some stuff that you're not telling me, and I want you to tell me what you're trying to say there, what you're not releasing. I found this one very, very, very odd there. Chase, what do you got?
I think we see the narrative getting set up from the very beginning. They did this several times. They probably brought whatever it is on themselves. They do this all the time. And Greg, I fully agree. There's some contempt when he says there's hope around this. And at the end, he smiles. I think that is a real smile. And that jaw moving is either unspoken language, like Mark said, or like Greg talks about regularly. We think about things and our mouths move, and Greg references his horses quite a bit. And I think this is where we could potentially be seeing some psychopathy here in this, that there's not a lot of tension here. And just watching this on mute, and if I told you, you're watching that video on mute, and this person is hoping that his wife and kids get found, and his hair is freshly cut, it's freshly shampooed, he has a very clean shave, hasn't lost a minute of sleep from the look of his face. We're stacking up just the appearance versus context here. So it's starting to reveal a little bit more. And that's all I got.
I started out the day, frankly, thinking it was just another of 24 times that they've done this. And throughout the day, people seem to think this was different. I mean, it's a different kind of behavior than their usual. And if the police department is changing things that dramatically, people thought that it was pretty serious, something to take seriously. And so I realized that maybe I've got some really good reason to hope.
Cool.
You're looking for a resolution to this, it sounds like.
I would like a resolution. I thought it would be frankly, I got the impression that they were talking about going down there and looking in a hotel or an apartment or something. I didn't know what to think. I mean, seeing the coverage this morning, I don't know what to think. It's just not what I was expecting.
Chase, what do you got?
I see a lot of the same stuff, the smiling that is going on here. And when he says, I would very much like a resolution, he's grabbing on to the words that are offered to him. He's not saying, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, I wish this would happen. He just grabs the word that this person says. So we may be dealing with someone with some kind of a mental problem. And the reporter here is using very well-timed elicitation techniques. So he didn't ask a question, he made a statement and then shut his mouth. And that silence made this kid, I won't even say his name, I don't think he deserves to have it on the air, but made this kid keep talking. And I think there is definitely a potential here for some serious mental stuff going on. Greg?
This guy, when he says, I hope for resolution, downright eye movement. That would be okay. If we did not see that other video, I would think that if your wife is missing and you think they're going to find her somewhere, hope for resolution is a good idea. But then he's got this weird little smile thing he does. And I'm just going to leave it just a couple of notes because he does this weird little smile and then he starts talking in words that have no meaning. He edits as he's speaking and doesn't finish a sentence. He's not conveying information. All that looks bad. Anytime I see that, it looks bad. Ultimately, this guy ends up dead. I don't think they ever pressed, I don't know if they pressed charges or not, but you can go look the case up. It's a pretty big one out of Salt Lake City. I would not trust anybody who said, oh yeah, I'd like it. I'd like it if this thing came to resolution. And then started to give me non-details. It just doesn't feel like you're telling the truth. And people who are truthful, we all know their messaging, their words, everything goes together. They punctuate what they're thinking. Their faces light. They move their faces. They're talking about something and they're being truthful. When it starts to look like a bad kung fu movie, something is wrong. And this is a bad kung fu movie. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, again, I listen to a lot of people talking. I'm pretty smart. So even if you're not quite making sense, my brain is able to make up a lot of the difference for you. And I can kind of go, yeah, I think I know kind of where you're going with this because you've given me enough. I have no idea where he's going on this. I have no idea where he's come from, where he's going. So he seems to be in a very different land from me. And that's always worrying because I can fantasize with everybody else and I can go on a flight of fancy and I can join you on an idea, but I can't at the moment join him anywhere. That's troubling. We see these eyelids go down twice slowly in a gesture for me of acceptance of this situation. So, if my wife were missing, I wouldn't be wanting to accept the situation. I'd be wanting to fight to have this situation change. He's got a lot of cold acceptance of this situation. There's the smile. It's not what we expect in this kind of situation. And he says, this was not what I was expecting. And there is a sense there of resignation around all of this. And all of that together for me is very, very troubling because we've now got somebody who is not getting what they wanted and they have resigned now. And at that point, yeah, we could be in a lot of trouble. And it transpires everybody got themselves into, well, there was a perpetrator and some people had zero responsibility for what transpired from this. Zero responsibility. So it's a troubling one, but hopefully for you, you've seen some of the things that we might look out for that would trouble us. It says nothing other than you want to investigate, you want to maybe go a little bit further, or you want to get out immediately, leave, go somewhere else. Don't be in the same vicinity as some of that. There, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Mark, what you're seeing when you can't figure out what's happening, there is a sheen there. There's a whole space. This guy has a whole thing going on over here, and he's standing back here behind it. He knows what's happened. He knows what he's going to do. I think he's got a good idea what he's going to do to get out of this. And so that's what you're seeing. It doesn't make any sense because it doesn't matter to him. And you're seeing that smile because you can call it duper's delight, whatever you want to call it, but that's what it is. We're seeing that, and I call it a shield because it's or like this thing that's around him where he doesn't care. You're just seeing whatever's coming out on a very shallow output of what he's letting you see of him. That's what we're seeing there. That's the way those people are. And those things happen. I've only seen it a couple of times, but that's what we're looking at there. So I'm familiar with that.
You're looking for a resolution to this, it sounds like.
I would like a resolution. I thought it would be frankly, I got the impression that they were talking about going down there and looking in a hotel or an apartment or something. I didn't know what to think. I mean, seeing the coverage this morning, I don't know what to think. It's just not what I was expecting.
So, tell us what happened the night the kids went missing.
Okay.
From our yard.
Okay. It was cold. I was gonna make a fire. There's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. We keep them close. They was playing with chalk, and I came in the house. I saw them there. I went in the house. I came back out. I didn't see them now. I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys? She said, no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them, so I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that didn't pan out, I got in the van. I looked down the street in both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners. I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. I talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see anyone. So then I came home and I told my wife we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We gotta get going. So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there and we wanted to keep searching. But everybody came out in droves. And I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching. And we appreciate it. And nobody ever could tell, we could never talk to anybody. And that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call, let somebody know.
Call the cops. Call California the City Police Department. Call them and let them know what you've seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious, okay? They are going to be here in this area. And I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy. I just want to know if make sure. That's it. Because I don't, go ahead, I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Chase, what do you got?
This thing starts off with this guy doing a self-hug where the palms are touching the body. This is typically a need for reassurance. We may be able to chalk some of that up to lower temperature, though, because you're more likely to see closed body behaviors when the temperature is low. He gets the whole story ready and starts this. He takes his time and gets the rehearsed material out in a very methodic manner, step by step, trying to get it out pretty quick. And he says, do not let them go, which is a strange thing to say. And then they start playing with chalk, present tense. I came in the house, past tense. I saw them there, past tense. I go in the house, present tense. I came back, past tense. And I didn't see them now. Past and present mixed together. This is the whole thing goes like this. The wife is exit checking and moving back and forth the whole time, that horizontal look for an exit, wanting to escape. There's no sadness at all. There's no request for continued help. This is thank you for all the help that happened. And this is another example of an innocence announcement. And it's a commercial for them about how they're innocent. All the requests are, if you see anything, what else would they see other than your kids? They're not asking for their kids to be brought back. They're asking for people, if you see something or if you saw something, which is mostly in the past tense when they're talking about this, all in the past. They're going to be rambunctious. There's some guilt exhalation right there. And they're going to be in this neighborhood. Greg mentioned what this is earlier. I think this is an embedded confession. They're not in the neighborhood. And I think he's so relieved at the end to be interrupted because he's running out of memorized fodder and he's having to think on his own. And overall, they're not asking for help. Think of the difference between if you see anything versus if you find our boys, if you see our kids, here's what they look like. If anybody has seen them versus let us know what you see versus protect our kids. Please, if you see our kids, call the police. What about if you see our kids, grab them, do something about it, not just make a phone call. So there's no emotion here at all. I would say this is a disgustingly deceptive here. Scott, what do you got?
All right, I agree with all that. We're seeing a lot of classics here. You know, we're seeing. I think you're right though. I think he might be cold. That's why his arms are crossed. That's one of those things because they're really, really tight. Because that's kind of obvious, and people go right to that. But it could be. That's the thing about crossed arms. It can mean one thing. It can mean something else. It can mean 40,000 different things. So I think you're right about that. He goes through and describes vividly how he's seen them. I saw him do this. I saw them here. When they say what happened, he goes around what he's doing. He goes from chopping wood to bringing it in the house, seeing him playing with chalk and doing all kinds of things. And then he goes in and asks his wife, where has she seen him? Because he's talking about how he saw him and had she seen him. So all this time where he's bringing in wood, he's chopping up wood, doing all these things. It's a whole lot of detail that you don't need because you would have said, I was out chopping wood to bring in the house, and the next thing I know, they're gone. I don't know where they are. I went and told her, and we started looking. It's very short. You get to the point because you're worried about what's happened, and you want to get that solved. And being solved is finding the kids and knowing they're safe and knowing where they are. So I think in that situation, I think we're seeing so many things, and he's pretty stiff too, man. He's pretty stiff when he looks around. You know, he's not got a lot of body movement because it's cold out and he's all wrapped up. But let's take a look at his wife. We see no grief on this guy whatsoever, but the whole time, the entire time, we see the grief muscle on her. You can see it really good when the light hits it right, and you can see it. I can't do it. Greg can do it great, but you can see that little U-shaped thing that your forehead makes when you're feeling grief. There's what it looks like. There it is, Greg. Bring it on. So that's the way your brain makes that when you're feeling grief. She's got that the whole time. We see her going back and forth and doing that little trance thing. But I think it's out of nerves. I think she's really in a panic about what's happening, and I think she's checking what's going on. She looks like she's getting ready to run at some points. That's what people do when you pull them over. One of them's looking around while you're talking to one. The other one's looking around. Can I bolt or not? That's what they'll start doing. But I think she's watching everything like a mother would, like women do. I know I always say like women do, but women do that. Their brain's taking in a lot more information than a man's brain does. And it keeps it, and it sorts it a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. And I think that's what she's doing, trying to gather up all the information she can because she's worried. So she's looking for everything. She's watching everything. He's not. He's just watching this one person who's asking him questions. Then he looks around at that crowd who's getting ready to give him a hard time. So because he knows that they're not into what he's saying about the situation. So it sounds like way too much like he's painting too big of a picture, too clear of a picture of what actually happened before because the next thing you know, they left. Then he talks about driving around, how much driving around he did. I don't know if they've checked the van yet or the car or whatever he was in, but I'll bet you while he was driving around, that could be the time where he did something with the bodies at that point, if he's the one that did it. So that gives him a whole lot of time. We talk about, he talks about, again, he's hiding a bunch of time in there. When he went in and talked to her, we don't know how long it was between those things. If you talk to her, I'd love to talk to them both separately so you can find out how much time he was missing from her, because she's in rapid presence. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of focus. So he's got tons of time to do stuff, and supposedly they're out playing with chalk on the thing. And then he's been out driving around. If she caught him driving around, she could have said, what are you driving around for? The kids are missing. But maybe she didn't. Maybe he actually did that. When he said, I'm going to go out and look for him, that's when he went out and got rid of the bodies, wherever he got rid of them. Outside of that neighborhood. Chase, I agree with you. They're not there. So that's what I think's going on. I think she's backing him up is what it is, because she's positive with everything he says, because she believes that he has nothing to do with it. He may not have anything to do with it, but up to this point, boy, it sure does look like he has something to do with it. Greg, what do you think?
So when I watch her, one person comes to mind immediately, Chris Watts, the sway rate. And I think maybe she knows nothing, but as we get further into these videos, I'm going to see her sway rate stop. So let's pay attention to it and see when it stops, when she gets to facts. Now, this is my rationale and the way I think, and every person's a little different. But the first thing I would do, you stick a microphone in my face, 3 microphones in my face, help me find my babies. Here's what I would say. That's just the way my brain works. Doesn't mean their brain works the same way. But what we do see is this, he's doing the boa constrictor thing I was talking about the other day, where he squeezes his own body so tight. Could be because he's cold. Could be because there's a crowd that wants his head 20 feet away, because that will create its own kind of exoskeleton and all those things that he's doing. This is one of the first we've ever covered that has a mask. And this is the new reality. People say, can you read body language during a mask? Watch his respiration rate. It's the worst possible way to have us see you. And you can see his face through the mask. It fits his face very nicely. But you can see his respiration rate increase. Now, I also talk typically about baselining the way people deliver a story. This guy is delivering small details. That will come back to haunt him when I get him in the interrogation room, because now I want to know every detail about everything. So when you hop over something, whoa, wait a minute. No and then, none of that. We're going to back up and we're going to go, but you told me you were picking up wood, you used chalk, you double-checked the chalk, and he had lilts in every one of those stories as he was looking for approval. This is a prepared statement. Now, why he prepared it is a different story. Did he prepare it because he's afraid those people are going to beat the crap out of him if he says the wrong thing? Did he prepare it because he's afraid I don't know. I can't tell that. What I can tell is his respiration's up. There's fight or flight involved. And he is telling me a very detailed story about most things, and a not very detailed story about how the kids got out, number one, how many places he drove. That's awfully broad. I drove all around. Down there, turned that way. Wait a minute. I drove down to McGillicuddy Road and turned right on. I did a circumference, I went all around the whole neighborhood. I used my light. I looked, I checked all these things. I told my wife I was going, all that's missing. That's a big deal in a guy who's telling you all these details. It means that he has gone through in his head and decided what he's going to say. That's important. And he's decided which details he's going to reinforce because he says them more than one time. And then suddenly it just kind of goes to hell. That's a big deal. You get lots of attention from me if you do that in the interrogation room. She does show the grief muscle a lot. Now, there's lots of reasons she could have grief. I lost my kids. I legitimately don't know where they're at. Something happened to my kids, and I do know where they're at. That still would create grief because you're a human being for the most part. Now, there are people who wouldn't, but her sway rate is up pretty high. So let's watch her and watch when it drops. These guys would get lots of attention from me. Doesn't mean they did anything. It could be all related to the crowd, but it certainly the story is certainly not smooth and fluid and tracking. Chase, what do you got?
I already went.
He's done.
Oh, did you? Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, lovely. So here's where I think it goes right for them and where it kind of starts to fall down for them. Yeah, absolutely. He's got this going on, but he does mention, it was cold, they were lighting a fire. So he's got some reason that we might go, that's why you're bound up. It's a cold day. She is, super anxious, or maybe it's a cold day for her as well. But having said that, I mean, if my kids were missing, it's like we don't, I think, ever see him break from that and start to tell the story in the way that I would. I'm a little more over the top. I would be gesturing. I'd be saying, look, here's what they look like they're so high, look out for them. I would be describing them, so I expect a few more descriptors. So I get that it's cold in that area right now. At the same time, when I put it against the context of the drama that's happening, I want him to be a bit less bound up. However, he says, it was getting dark and they called the police and he said, I need help. Well, that's a good thing. So he says, I don't know whether that's true or not, but his story is they call the police. They need help. He says he was there in the vehicle. He hits a bunch of corners. That's a good strategy because you're hitting decision points for the other human beings. You want to go to points where they could make a decision because maybe they only just made the decision. You're going to look left and right or forward and you're going to see them. So that seems well worked out that he went to decision points. So it seems, a well-ordered, well-structured story, and many of the elements have good reason for them to be happening. But then he says, well, we didn't search because the cops told them they had the best out there. This makes now less sense, and it starts to make less sense to the crowd around later on. It's not making a lot of sense to people. They do back it up going, hey, look, they kind of got a guard there. But I've been part of missing persons and you know what? The constable comes in and you go, make yourself at home, do whatever you like. I'm going out there. I'm going out there. At that point, it would be, if you want me to stay here, you're going to need to arrest me because I'm going out right now. So arrest me and you make yourself quiet at home, get yourself a cup of tea. You're all good. Yeah. Do whatever you like here. I'm going out there. They've got a reason why now. Again, it could be, it's a police officer and you kind of do what the police officer says. I totally understand that. If a police officer says, hey, stay here, then I'm like, why? Why are they saying to stay there? I would have thought one of the things a police officer could want to do is where the kids hang out, where they go to, let's go. Help us see where'd you go with the kids? Where would they have gone to? Where do they hang out? Show me the relatives. Who else in the community do they know? Whose house would they go to? So it's all starting to not make a lot of sense when you dig in to the ordered sense that seems to have set up. It seems like a pretty good story, but I think it starts to fall to bits. And so I'm a little bit worried. Oh, and then suspicion is moved as well. I'd like to go and look in people's houses, not to pry, but just to discount people. So there's this idea of, I think the perpetrator might live nearby or the kids might be hiding nearby. I got to check this out. A little bit of shift of culpability or suspicion there. Anyway, that's all I got on that one.
Hey, can I add one point here? When we talk about shifting tenses and all of those different things, remember culture is everything. And in some cultures, shifting tense is normal. People may use verbal nouns instead of verbs. So we need to pay attention to what their pattern is to say, okay, that's probably normal for them. Remember, I live in the deep South. My family may shift tenses with no thought for it. It's just part of how we talk. It's just our culture. And culture matters, right?
So, tell us what happened the night the kids went missing.
Okay.
From our yard.
Okay. It was cold. I was gonna make a fire. There's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. We keep them close. So I was playing with chalk, and I came in the house. I saw them there. I went in the house. I came back out. I didn't see them now. I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys? She said, no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them, so I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that didn't pan out, I got in the van. I looked down the street, both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners. I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. I talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see me. So then I came home and I told my wife we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We gotta get going. So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there, and we wanted to keep searching. But everybody came out in droves, and I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching, and we appreciate it, and nobody ever could tell, we could never talk to anybody, and that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call, let somebody know.
Call the cops. Call California the City Police Department. Call them and let them know what you've seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious, okay? They are going to be here in this area. And I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy. I just want to know if make sure. That's it. Because I don't. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Because I don't. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna say, this is the first time we're hearing from you guys, and I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I can't even fathom it. For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved, we just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys, and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry because we were entrusted with her children, and they came to us, and they became our children, and we named them. And they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys are doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense. That's part of the investigation. So that's pretty much it.
Have you guys?
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Why is foul play understandable? Why does that make total sense? I can't understand why that would be a thing. And second, there's no denial. Why is there no denial? And this is another case, as we've seen in many of these videos, of the vanishing perpetrator. Nobody's responsible. The pool of potential suspects is so wide that we can't even really talk about it because we look everywhere. We have no idea who's involved. Okay. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, but Chase, they are on the same page that it's understandable. So by the very force of, there's two people saying that it's understandable, it's totally understandable. So you should not question how understandable that is. She said it's understandable. He said it's understandable. Let's just leave it at that and move on to something else. Yeah, I'm on exactly the same as you are. I've got here in quotes, it's understandable, and I put, it's not understandable. It isn't understandable at all. I wouldn't, if I had adopted some kids, which is my understanding of what's happened here, and the genetic parent came to me and went, look, foul play, I would be like, no, absolutely not. Yeah, those kids are my kids. I love those kids. I care for them. I am now the female here does at one point, I think, show shame. Certainly the head hangs. It's a possibility that there may be some shame there. I'm kind of interested in that. But just as you say, Chase, there is no denial here. And this idea put forward of anybody's idea that there might be foul play is totally understandable, and it comes from an emotional place rather than one of them putting some facts together or some ideas together and going, yeah, there's a possibility here that something went on. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm totally with you on that. Makes no sense to me that this would be understandable. No denial. I don't get it. Greg, what do you got?
When I see the beginning of this conversation and the guy starts to ask questions, you see that concern muscle, all those muscles right there in those vertical lines. Chase, you beat me to it. I would have been like, well, no, I didn't hurt my kids. But no, the only place I really see grief, and I'm not sure because the shadows are a little tough, is when he's talking to the mother. And I see a wrinkle right in there. Can't tell if it's grief, if it's kind of a request for approval because of the shadows on his face. But look at his respiration before he starts to answer the questions. Blink rate goes through the roof. Then he goes down to some internal conversation. You see him looking down to the left and then right back to riveted eye contact. Again, all of those are really good indicators for me to want to go just crawl all over someone. But I also am trying to remember that he has a threat standing 10 feet away, and it'll become more evident who that threat is here in just a couple of minutes as the biological aunt starts to kind of raise a little hell with him. So you'll get to see that. He does give too much information again, and it's no value. It's zero value information. He's back to a lot of detail around they took away my tech because they thought. And the understandable thing, I'm with you. If you accused me of killing a child or doing some foul play to a child, even if it wasn't my child, I would be the first guy to go, well, hold on. And I might even lash back out at the person whose child I had in foster care. But we don't hear any of that. And that makes you suspicious that something is wrong. Guys, doesn't mean these people kill their kid. But in our opinions, when you see all of these red flags, it means you're going to get a hell of a lot of attention. And that's what they're going to get as a result of this. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah. And then here's what it looks like to me. What he's trying to make happen, I believe, is have it dawn on you that somebody got the kids. Somebody must. He doesn't say that. He says they're here somewhere, and he alludes to they'll be in there somewhere in somebody's house or something because he wants to look into them. I think we talked about that in a minute. But he wants it to dawn on you that because he would have said, I didn't do it. Somebody came in here and got the, he's not, there's no emotion there whatsoever. He's not fired up to say, here's what I think happened, because you're going to say what you think happened, whether it's congruent with your partner or not, whether it's what she thinks or not. He's going to say, somebody got him. I think somebody got him. I went in, somebody got my kid. And that's going to be repetitive. You're going to hear him repeat that, but not once does he say that. Not once does he say, somebody came in here and got him when I was in the house or something. They stepped out and he never says somebody got him. So that to me is that's a big red flag. That's where you climb up all over him for that kind of stuff. And what else have I got? Thanks, Chase. I don't have anything else. So I think that's
good
all.
Grab.
I know, but they were the biggies.
That was a great grab, though. The lack of denial. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I got it. So,
but that's a good sign. Every one of us is going, where's the denial?
Yeah.
Because I don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, this is the first time we're hearing from you guys, and I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I can't even fathom it. For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved. We just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys, and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry because we were entrusted with her children, and they came to us, and they became our children, and we named them, and they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys are doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense. That's part of the investigation. So that's pretty much it.
Have you guys?
And I guess, I don't even know.
I see. Yeah, we seriously felt like we needed to be out here. We did. Again, we were told the best are out here looking already. Just to stay put. They have more questions. There was literally a cop with us the whole time in there.
He had sitting down. We would ask, can we go help? They had to sit down.
Said nope.
He said, no, we got the best out there.
So
we
it's
need
not,
you guys here in case we have more questions.
I don't want you guys thinking we didn't try. We actually looked before we called the police.
Yes.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so what interests me, look, some cops are better than other cops. We know that. Some cops are great. Some cops are bent. Some cops are somewhere in the middle. These particular cops decided that these two weren't going out. Okay. Now let's just suspect that they're good cops doing a job. What gets triggered in me is I go, why are they continue the questioning? What's going on? What have they seen? What have they seen that I'm not getting to see right now? Because my vote would be, if a good cop sees the right stuff, they're going to go, great, get out there. Where would they go? Like, take us there. Like, they would be using the parents as a tool of discovery, of information out there in the world. Okay, because you're in these situations, as you all will well know, your time is limited and you want to get stuff going. They're deciding to use the time to do interview in situ in the house. They could have been bad cops, could have been doing it for stupid reasons. Let's just suspect that they're doing it for averagely good reasons or very good reasons. That is a bit of a trigger for me. That's a bit of a red flag because something's up in their mind. They've seen something. So somebody said something. There's enough there to go, keep them here, ask them more questions. We'll go out and look, but you keep them here, ask them more. That's all I got on that one. Scott, what do you got?
I agree with you, Mark. There's some good cops and some bad cops. But the reason they're keeping them in there is that's part of the protocol. And they'll see how they react when you tell them they can't go outside. See what they do. How fired up they're going to get. That's the reason for the bait question. A lot of times you'll say it to see if they get mad. And you'll say, I know this, when you know it's not true, just to watch them react. So you're right. They've seen something on at least one of them that says, we got to keep these people in here. And just watch them. And I'll bet it's not just the cops. I bet it's a detective in there at that point, sitting there with them, not letting them go out, because that was a suggestion, or they would have gone out. The police wouldn't just keep you in there. So I think at this point we can look at exactly what you said, Mark. There's something's happened. Something's triggered something where they said, hang on just a second, let's keep an eye on this guy. So it may not be the woman. I'm still on the part where I don't think she has anything to do with it. I could be wrong, but I still think she's I still think she's clean and she's just backing him up. And I'm still seeing some innocent stuff on this guy, but I'm seeing more and more deception on this guy as we go along. His blink rate really isn't high at all, and he locks right in on that person asking him the question. He does check that crowd a lot. Greg, you're right. He does do an eye check over there to make sure everything's going to be okay. Because you'll notice the people that are hollering the most are the women. because the women, they can spot that stuff on somebody, even from a distance. You know, if it doesn't look right, they'll tell you, and they'll tell you all about it. And they have that instinct in them that goes, nope, something's not right here. I'm telling you, something's not right. So that's why they're getting fired up, I believe. But the cops would keep them inside because they want to keep an eye on them. Mark, you nailed that. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, you guys hit a lot, but just go back and listen. This is not about recovering their kids. This is about their story from both of them, not just one person. This is about proving innocence, and they're treating the event, the search and all this other stuff, as if it's pretty much over. Everything is like, if you saw something, and thank you for everything, let's go ahead and wrap this up. You know, we're going to go back inside after this. And it was about their innocence and how they tried. We did our best, and I'm sorry I can't do anything else. Greg, what do you got?
We do get a strong denial. What's a strong denial about? We were not allowed to go look for these kids. That's the only strong denial we've seen yet. There's passion. She starts to get telling about it. That makes me think they're trying to defend themselves against these people, and they're not worried about the police at this point, and there's closure in their book. I agree with you, Chase. It doesn't feel like, no, come help me. It's, hey, we did our best. We were held in there by the police. Look, they told us what to do. They told us they had the best. Listen at the passion in their voices. There's a Southernism. Listen to the passion in their voices, and listen to how they speak when they're denying being lazy about finding these kids. Very different from denying that they did something to the kids.
And I guess, I don't even know.
I see. Yeah, we seriously felt like we needed to be out here. We did. Again, we were told the best are out here looking already. Just to stay put, they have more questions. There was literally a cop with us the whole time in there.
He had sitting down. We would ask, can we go help? They had to sit down.
Said nope.
He said, no, we got the best out there.
So
we need
it's not,
you guys here in case we have more questions.
I don't want you guys thinking we didn't try. We actually looked
tried.
Before we called the police.
Yes.
And I imagine the mind-boggling part is the search for information. What happened? Where are they?
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera.
And
and just so we are able to present the information correctly, at what time did you guys notice your kids went missing, and at what time were they reported missing to the police?
It's about, I think it was about 4:30, going on 5. It was getting dark, like I said. 5-ish. That's about it. That's when everything played out.
And then when did you guys call the police to report them missing?
After we searched a little bit around here, it was dark, so we definitely we got worried.
Would you say it was maybe within an hour, a couple hours?
No, it was within minutes of us getting finished with our search. Okay. It was within minutes.
All right. Greg, what do you got?
This is going to be one of the places we see her sway rate stop. When she starts to answer a complex question about time, watch her stop, dead still. First time we see it in the entire thing. That would make me raise a red flag. If you're having to think versus just recall, your brain stops doing all that other stuff. And then she's passionate and punctuating in that. He's also in deconflict. Remember, we say fabricate. It starts with trigger, then fabricate, then deconflict before you pitch. He's getting the opportunity to answer questions for the first time. And if I were the questioner, this would have been a hot place to be right now, because he talks about 4:30, 5-ish. Well, hold on. Is it 4:30? Is it 5? Is it 4:30 to 5? What happened? And then there's a big gap. They don't talk about time. And here's this detailed guy who's now not talking about time. I drove around the block. That took 10 minutes. I came back. Now, he knows exactly about the chalk and all that. This would get this guy a lot of attention from me, and my questions would get really hard. Was it 4:30 or was it 5? Okay, I understand you might not know exactly. How long did it take you to react? And then there's just this missing whole bunch of stuff there, and she comes to a dead halt and starts to talk. Doesn't make me comfortable that a baseline just changed when they're being asked a really hard question. This is a bad sign for both of them, and I would be all over him. And I'll just stop there and leave the rest of the stuff, except for he's breathing through that cloth, and you can't miss the respiration rate increase. So I'll leave it at that and say, Scott, what do you got?
All right, I agree with you, but I think she stops because she's thinking, this isn't right. Maybe the timeline he's saying and she's been backing him up, she knows it isn't correct. I still don't see her being guilty in this because that grief muscle's so hard in there, man. It's so big. I see where you're coming from, but on my side, I'm going to say at this point, I think she sees information coming out of her guy that she disagrees with, and that's why she's stopping. That's what I think there. She could be wrong. So on all the other
shift,
stuff,
though. Big baseline
shift. I agree. It's a baseline shift, but I think that's why I think she's like, wait a minute, that's not right, as she goes through, because she's thinking about that timeline in her head as well. But I agree with you. There's tons of time in there. That's you ate up the first part. That's all I got. Chase, what do you got?
So we see she wants to run pretty badly, innocent or not. This is a pre-flight indicator here. This exit checking. And when she's talking about the search, it's just a kind of a casual gesture. We searched around. It was very casual, pretty sloppy. And I think it's unusual how he just kind of wraps up the story with the words, and that's when everything played out. That's very unusual. And keep in mind, there's no desire in either one of them to get their kids back. There's some small comments. Call the police. Here's the exact city that you need to talk to make it sound more official. There's no desire. It's about their innocence and how they did everything right, and it's about the past, not about the future. So both of their statements are past centric. So basically, let's sum this up. It was 5-ish. We searched a little bit. We got worried. It was dark. Thanks everybody for your help, and that was it. Mark.
Yeah. So I'm just going to absolutely agree with everything that's been said there. I'm just going to highlight one area that at the end of that string that he gives there, Chase, he says, that's about it. Okay. Well, my response to that would be, I understand that's about it. So fill in the details because that's about it isn't it. I want to know what it is. So give me all the details. So we're not talking what it's about. We know what it is. There's elements here which aren't being said. Now, what's great about this is there's enough in the story in detail that it's kind of quite easy to buy so far, because there is enough, it was 4:35-ish. Sure, I can see how you might lose half an hour. When did you call the police? Well, like immediately. Okay, I get that. And he's already given us, look, I drove around, I switched the lights on, it was getting dark, I hit the four corners, so I could easily say, look, how long did it take? Well, it took as long as it takes to go from that corner to that corner, that corner, that corner. It went dark. We called the police immediately. But then that's about it. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good for me. So I got a problem with that one. Have we heard from everybody?
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, and that's from Mr. Detail. Mr. Detail, who says that's
right.
And when you start, when your kids go missing like that, you start there at the house and you start walking around. You don't get in the car immediately and go driving around everywhere. You start there and you start hollering for them. You start hollering their names at the house, behind the houses. You look behind and no, and you wouldn't miss a thing. It would be almost like a grid. I'm going to go over here and look, and you go over here and look, and let's find them. That's where it would go. So I agree with you, Mark, 100%. Yeah, driving around. Yeah.
And if that woman isn't guilty, I think there may be some guilty knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I imagine the mind-boggling part is the search for information. What happened? Where are they? Et cetera, et cetera.
And
And just so we are able to present the information correctly, at what time did you guys notice your kids went missing? And at what time were they reported missing to the police?
It's about, I think it was about 4:30, going on 5. It was getting dark, like I said. 5-ish. That's about it. That's when everything played out.
And then when did you guys call the police to report them missing?
After we searched a little bit around here, it was dark, so we definitely we got worried.
Would you say it was maybe within an hour, a couple hours?
No, it was within minutes of us getting finished with our search. Okay. It was within minutes.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing for me, that can be for lots of reasons. I feel guilty for killing somebody can be that, Yeah. There's all kinds of reasons. People that's the thing I love about what we do.
You could see that in a diarrhea Pepto-Bismol commercial.
I felt so sorry for that guy. Oh, that's too bad. It's sad.
I'll just throw that clip in here.
That'd be funny. Yeah.
Okay, I will.
What do you guys want people at home to understand about this situation? For them, even speaking about what you guys are feeling is difficult. What do you want them at home to understand about this whole situation?
We're going through it. It's difficult. I mean, everybody's making their own their own conclusions. They don't know anything. We're not sure everything. We're not sure. We said what we knew, and if anybody has seen them or anything, please call the police department.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yep. So the most important thing about this one for me is what do you want people to know? Well, we're going through it. There's a lot of stuff which is about we rather than what I want people to know. Just want to reiterate: if you see the kids, grab them, like wherever you see them, call their names. Their names are, call their names. Here's what they like. I would want to find ways of attracting people to connecting with those kids and finding those kids. No, this is about we're going through it. Now, to give them their due, there is a threat out there of the rest of the family and maybe neighbors as well. But there's a gang out there. There's a crowd. And this could be for them. It could be for them of, look, go soft on us. We're having a hard time here. We've done our best here. So it could be about that. But even so, it's the wrong way to go in this situation. Chase, what do you got?
Much the same. And right here we see we're going through it. What does that mean? Well, tell us what's going on. We're going through it. It's a meaningless statement, and more focused on their innocence than finding the kids. There's no sadness. There's no request for assistance. Only asking to be believed, and saying call the police department if you see them. Still hasn't said their names, which is also another guilt indicator for both parties. Everything's past tense. If anyone has seen them, instead of as if anyone sees them. Those are very different statements. And I think this is going through rehearsed motions. I think this whole campaign is focused on this singular event. They want it over with. And just think about this as you're rewatching this after we wrap this little segment here. What's the light at the end of the tunnel when you're watching these videos? For the next people, anytime you see this in the future on television, what's the light at the end of the tunnel the person is reaching for? Is it finding kids, finding the guilty party, getting through the situation, or being believed? And if it's being believed or kind of getting a press conference over with, that's 55 red flags to me. Greg.
Every person in this room would be all over these guys because I've not heard a single name mentioned. I've not heard my kid is 2 feet tall, dark hair, dark skin, red coat, green pants. Nothing, not a single item. Now, we didn't pull every item, everything they said, but if you were asking me, I'd say, looks like this. Response to that, Mark, you're dead on. This is about rescue. Remember, the caller is the killer is a study by 2 psychologists who say, and AI is going to eventually replace us looking for a lot of this. And when a person calls, if they're not trying to get help and they're telling you their story, it's an indicator. Well, if these guys wonder why people like us are all over them, they probably should be thinking about that. And again, they have a threat standing right there. So I don't want to forget that threat because it's very realistic. But standing like this and, closing, he says nothing during this one because he realizes she's got the life preserver and she's running with it. He's not going to say anything because he's like, I don't know how to answer that. That probably would, if that were their norm and they didn't both answer the question, would look okay. But up to now, they both answered everything, almost like they had talked a little bit about it, which is, Scott, the only reason I don't feel like that grief muscle means that she is innocent. What I say here, this is my opinion. I don't know whether they're guilty. I don't know whether it's just because of the threat right there. But the way I look at people, my number one indicator is raised fight or flight. Because the threat of being discovered causes our little brains to go, yeah, there's a threat and I got to do something about it. And the interesting piece is our little brains don't know the difference between a threat on the other end of a Zoom call and a bear behind us that we suddenly realize is there. Our little brains are designed to take that threat and figure out what to do with it. Don't know which it is for them. And if I got them into a room, to your point earlier, Mark, and I was seeing this same behavior pattern, I would go, something's up. So I might want them in the house away from this threat so that I could do their baseline, look at how they're doing. Her sway rate does slow here, but it doesn't stop like it did in the last one. That's what I got. Who's left to go?
Me.
Scott, you left?
Yeah. So,
Scott,
okay, you guys covered everything, but I'll go back to her one more time in that I don't know, man. I don't know. I think she's weighing what this guy is saying, and it's dawning on her that a lot of what he's saying just isn't right, or it sounds odd to her even. That's where I'm going with it. I just don't. I know you guys all think she did. This is the one time I'm going up against everybody, but I don't.
I don't know. I honestly, this is one of those where I'm like, all I'm thinking is there's certainly threat response. Right?
We're just saying there's more red flags than you're saying there are.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, just a different flavor of red flag. We all know that they would get attention. That's
true. That's true. Now, what should be the one that she ends up hatcheting this guy to death and all that, and then there I'll be going, I have to leave.
What do you guys want people at home to understand about this situation? For them, even speaking about what you guys are feeling is difficult. What do you want them at home to understand about this whole situation?
We're going through it. It's difficult. I mean, everybody's making their own their own conclusions. They don't know anything. We're not sure everything. We're not sure. We said what we knew, and if anybody has seen them or anything, please call the police department.
Police are looking into bank records today to see if there's any activity and anything. So hopefully they get a location of that if the bank card has been used, because that was the only thing that was with her, a bank card and a phone. She left her purse at home. So hopefully something's picked up with that.
Okay. Any luck with the phone? Has that been any help at all?
No, not really. The night she went missing, I rang her about hundreds of times, but the phone rang but went to voicemail. Then about 8 in the morning, the battery must have died. It went straight to voicemail. So the police I asked the police to look into kind of tracing it, but I don't know if we can if the phone's off. So I'm not sure how much help the phone's going to be.
Do you know what the police will be doing today? What more they'll be doing?
They're just going to do the bank records thing, and that's I think they're just doing a scan of the area as well. I think they're down in Hope Street right now doing a bit of just a scan of the area. But other than that, I don't really know until they update me. So,
What about yourself? Do you plan to do something, or what do you do?
Well, we're still doing loads of postering and Facebook campaigning, Twittering, all that stuff. But we just want to get. I'm doing loads and loads of interviews and media stuff. I just want to get as much out there as possible. It's Friday night in Sydney Road. It's busy. People have to have seen something, or somebody has to have seen Jill at some stage. So I just want people to kind of really think if they've seen anything at all, to contact the police.
So she's a regular at the bar, isn't she?
Yeah.
What have the guys or the staff And the owners said, did they see her leave or anything?
They saw her leave, yeah. So they said she left maybe at 1:30, and that was she left with some work friends. But that's all they really know, because she went to another bar after that. So they don't really know what happened to her after that. But they're really upset as well, because obviously they know Jill, and you know, that's her bar. You know, that's where she always goes. So.
And Tom, what are you going through?
Hell, it's just devastating. But yeah, just trying to push on as much as possible.
What's keeping you going?
Just hope somebody saw something, or she just walked through the door.
Do you still think that'll could happen today?
I have to. Yeah.
Tom, what about the mention that she may have been having some issues with? There's a quote in the paper today about a midlife crisis or that sort of thing. Is that
a midlife crisis in terms of
exactly?
I don't know anything about that.
Does that mean anything to you? Does it
not
ring
all.
any bells at all? Was she having any issues at all?
No. Well, I mean, her dad's not well. But other than that, she's really happy here. She's really happy in Melbourne. We were just discussing that like the day before she left, or whatever happened. So we were just discussing, how happy we were here, and I spoke to her before I left work, and she was great spirits. Everyone who was there that night said she was in really good spirits. So I don't know.
Do you think there's any chance she may have taken off and just needed, by her own?
I would think it's unlikely, just given her character, and it's just really out of character. So I wouldn't think so.
How's the rest of the family going, Tom, through this whole?
Obviously, they're devastated. They're over in Perth right now, and they're constantly in contact, and they're obviously devastated. They've gone through a bit recently, and it's not easy on them at all. Yeah. Her brother came over yesterday to help me out, and he's been fantastic. So, just have to keep pushing on, I suppose. Yeah.
Are they planning to make their way over here?
I'm not sure yet. As I said, her dad's not well at the moment, so hopefully, we'll see. I don't know at the moment.
All right. Greg, you want to talk a little bit about that one?
This guy was later proven to be innocent. Someone kidnapped his wife and killed her. So we know he's innocent. Let's talk about this video and talk about, you always ask, how can I tell when someone is being truthful? This is a great example. I'll start by saying I look for congruent message. Illustrators, meaning our hands moving, our brows moving, all of those things, the way we punctuate our thoughts, are lined up at the punctuation points in his speech. His face looks hollow and worn, a lot like the McCanns in the video we watched way back when. There's emotion. He's just worn out. You can see it in his face. Chase, you brought up earlier, the other people looking refreshed and all of that when their wife and child is missing. He doesn't. He looks worn out and tired. He mentions his wife's name in this at least 4 or 5 times. He brings up her name specifically. When brought up something about the bar, he goes, yes, that was her bar. He's validating all these things about her. His entire message is congruent. You can see emotion in him when it should be there. When he talks about the family, you can see emotion there. This is messaging on all fronts, adapters, barriers. When we think about people being truthful, they use their hands, they use their face. His shoulders rise when he's helpless. You don't see him kind of masking. He doesn't give you too much information. He doesn't chaff and redirect. Given the opportunity, when somebody would ask you about the bar, you may say, oh, yes, she went there all the time, every Tuesday night. Boom, there's chaff. And they redirect to get away. We see none of that here. We see clear messaging, illustrating, low adapters, low blink rate, lots of eye contact at the right times. But when he's asked a question, his eyes drift off into recall or possibly creative as he's trying to recall or come up with an answer for something. This looks normal. This looks like people I interview in a job interview any day. It's just normal behavior for a person. Scott, what do you got?
I agree totally. And we're seeing what I call loping, where he's just telling the story, he's telling what happened, everything's just loping right along, everything's just fine. He doesn't he doesn't look nervous. We see no concern, which is okay here because at this point, like you said, he's worn out. This guy's been going through this for a few days, I think, at this point. He's talking about all the things he's got up and running. Facebook, Twitter, different kinds of things on social media, trying to find her. It's just smooth. It's just smooth. Everything is, when they ask him a question, he just bloop, just lopes right along until it gives the answer. It doesn't start this stopping stuff and thinking and adding this odd extras that don't need to be there. There are no additives that don't need to be there. Everything is where it should be. Everything sounds the way it should be. Everything looks the way it should be. And there are no dramatic changes in expression that stay. You know, if he's got to have concern and go away, then concern and go away, concern and go away. It's all just that, here's the information I have. What do you want to know? Here's what I know about this. And when he talks about the police talking to him, it's just everything's really, really smooth. And talking about where she goes to her bar. And he talks about how they know her there and those types of things. Everything's just really smooth. Everything is relaxed as you go along. No, none of these really odd, long pauses like we've seen in all these other ones. Everything is just right there. No, what he's talking about doesn't get confusing. You're not confused about what he's explaining. Everything's plain. Everything's just laid right out. No problems whatsoever. All right, Chase, what do you got?
I did not know who this guy was until you guys just said it. I didn't know he was innocent. In the notes, I just have Aussie Dude written down as this video. And there's solid eye recall when we would expect to see it as he's thinking to answer a question. There's a request to trace the phone. There's Facebook and Twitter and postering. There's so much going on here. Someone has to have seen Jill using her name, as Greg pointed out. This is exactly what we're looking for. Think about the light at the end of the tunnel for him. This isn't a campaign about innocence. This is a campaign to find a person that's missing. There's immediate answers to questions. And when they ask, what are you doing now? And he says, I'm in hell. That's an immediate answer with a facial emotion that corresponds to his answer. The grief muscle, there's chin boss movement, there's genuine sadness throughout the whole video. There is hope and concern for her return. That's what his statement is about. His entire presence on camera is focused around that, not himself. He says somebody's going to come forward, faith and confidence that something positive is going to happen. Not, well, we did all we could. And I think she's happy. So this shows him using a present tense to describe where she is now. So I think this is his confidence in his hope that she's doing okay. He's unsure of how to describe her departure when he kind of mixes up those words, or of when she left, or when, whatever happened. That's great. He's confident in her happiness, and he's confident that there's a lack of a midlife crisis. Somebody who's guilty might be more willing to say, yeah, she was going through a whole lot, unpredictable behavior. She's probably going through some kind of a midlife crisis right now. And when he says it's not likely that she took off, that's the key. That's the key. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, really good. Great stuff. Biggest thing for me is right at the end of this, he talks about the brother coming to kind of help out and do the search. And he says, the brother is fantastic. Okay. And listen to him say that. The brother, he's fantastic. And the sincerity of that. Now, what would usually happen, and we've seen it happen with another of the characters that we've looked at, is when the family get involved, they are the biggest threat because they're not going to give up. They're not going to stand down. So we've seen with other people that we've looked at that they've actually said to the family, you know what, you shouldn't bother. Just don't even bother because it's going to be too tricky out here. There's enough. We got this sorted. It's too wide a space. You're never going to be able to find anybody here. You stay where you are. We'll just handle it over there. No, he's like, great. The brother's here and he's fantastic. That for me was the biggest thing because the brother would be his biggest threat in this kind of situation. The family would be the biggest threat, and he's sincerely thankful and open to that. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it as at that. That was the clincher for me.
Great. All right then. Well, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. And just click that little red thing down there, and you'll know when we have a new thing come out, usually on Thursdays, sometimes on Wednesdays if we get it finished long enough or quick enough and we don't get put in a copyright jail for a day or so. So there you have it. All right, fellas, that's another good one. I'll see you next time.
Listen, one last thing, actually, on that last one, I should say, it's a pretty safe world out there, mainly. But if you can, walk your friend home from the bar, from the club. Look after your friends. Take them home. Make sure everybody gets home. Ring people up. Did you get back okay? All of that kind of stuff. There, I'm done.
Cool.
Great comment.
All right. See you guys next time.
Later.
Gina.
The Behavior Panel.
Chase, what do you got? You guys quit doing that. Let's pretend like we're listening to them.